event this was. UFC 290 at T-Mobile Arena, International Fight Week. Yeah, to start off, I thought, a lot of people were talking about how name value-wise, this card might not have been one of the better UFC International Fight Week cards, but in terms of quality, man, this one was one of the best that I think I've ever seen. And, I think that was displayed by the one thing that I keep seeing, that there were 4 sub 1 minute finishes on this card, which has never happened in modern UFC history. Obviously, that's kind of happened in the older days when they were fighting literally 3 times a night. But I think that's why they call it. I'm glad they say that, because they used to not say modern UFC history, and then they would just forget about those older fighters. Yeah. But it's a different era. But it was an awesome event. A lot of energy in the crowd. Big names in attendance. I mean, a lot of actors, athletes. Trump was there. He was. Did you see they gave him a walkout? I don't know if you caught that. It was at the tail end of the prelims.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
It was so funny. I was watching, it was Michael Eaves, Dominic Cruz, and Bisping talk, and then you see him, pop up in the background on the Jumbotron, and I'm like, yo, it's Trump. And then they cut to a shot of him just walking out with Dana like he's a fighter almost. It was crazy. He was shaking hands with people and stuff.
I think he's gonna get booked on the Elon and Mark Zuckerberg card. The undercard.
Fight Biden.
Biden's probably, Biden just has his hands too full and whatnot.
He won't get into a cage with me. He's too scared.
Yeah, I think Trump's just have to do the calling out. He'll call somebody out.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching it was Morning Combat. Shout out to Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, but they were talking about what if Trump had an investment in Power Slap, and that might have been the funniest shit I heard all week. There's a lot of good slappers, the best slappers, only on Rumble, but it was cool to see all those people there. I mean, so I don't know how much we should talk about Trump just because of all the things that are going on.
And then associate him with Slap.
They don't need the publicity. Yeah. They don't need that publicity. CNN, next thing you know, is going to be going at it. They're going to be like, yeah, I mean, Power Slap. There's a bit of, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But let's just get right into the fights. What do you say?
That makes sense. Makes sense.
So, in the main event, Alexander Volkanovski defeats Yair Rodriguez by TKO, 4 minutes and 19 seconds into round 3. And the place that I want to start this is where we usually start it when Volkanovski fights, is just the fact that this dude is so great at every aspect of mixed martial arts. Yair had a little bit of success on the feet, but Volk was still landing well, and then on the ground it just wasn't even close, really. The ground and pound was brutal, and I thought anytime it was on the ground, Yair just didn't really have much of a chance. But the thing is, it's not because Yair is bad on the ground. He has a really good guard. I think he has an underrated guard, honestly. So he's good off his back, but Volk just made it look easy when he was on top, man. But what did you think of this performance?
Yeah, dude, you said it pretty much, and I hope this isn't one of these fights that gets too tied in with how just the finish alone and how that went, because I think sometimes even ourselves, it's more just a general thing with fight fans that get too a little caught up in the one specific moment that happened in the fight. And sure, I think there's a difference between that and then an actual turning point in the fight. And so in this case, what I'm referring to obviously is the headbutt. And so for me, it's I think with a turning point within a fight is more okay, so this is a more fight this is telling more, I'd say, more of, there's more to take from in this fight, whereas this fight only didn't even go, past 2 rounds. And so
3 rounds.
3 rounds, right. So regardless, we didn't even get into the championship rounds yet. And so with me, I think the people that are taking credit away from Volk because of that, and then obviously at this, pretty much the second the fight gets back, gets going again, that was all she wrote for Yair Rodriguez. I wish people would kind of just, I guess maybe some people need another watch or whatnot. Obviously, you don't want to just have one live reaction to a fight and then have your entire opinion based on that. But I think Volk had that fight well in his wheelhouse from the get-go, even with, like you were mentioning, working off his back. The jiu-jitsu was obviously working in all phases for him. Like, it's just like, however you want to slice it, like, this is the actual champion, and then Yair is the interim champion. And then from what I saw from the entire fight that we got, I was just seeing the interim champion get outclassed by the actual champion.
Which is crazy because Yair Rodriguez, like I was saying, his guard is insane. So the fact that Volk was just holding him down and beating the crap out of him on the ground is special enough because, as we saw in the Josh Emmett fight, that's not exactly easy to do.
He's a pit bull, man. Volk, like, he's relentless.
I love it. And, like, the pace that he puts on guys, it's just unmatched. And I think that was something that we can get into.
And so, like, you could argue, you could just argue that the longer the fight goes, the worse that it gets anyways for Yair Rodriguez. So
I don't know if it would have gotten much better. I mean, dude, you could argue that stoppage was almost a little late, which is how many. And I think world title fight, you give him a little bit more of a leash if you can, but I don't think that fight would have gotten any better if that round would have ended, because it was towards the end of the round. But I don't know, man. He was just getting pounded on, and you were mentioning the headbutt. I know a little bit. You're talking about Bilal Muhammad's tweet, but
that's that's definitely like.
That was the first one in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
I get it, but like Bilal trained with him though, like a lot in the past like month, so I get why he has a rooting interest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I even said this to you. Yeah, you could argue maybe that it impacted him like when he first got hurt, but then it was like another minute and a half after he got finished.
To me, it's just like it comes off whether you mean it or not like this, it just comes off like you're slighting the guy that obviously won the fight by way of the headbutt.
Well, I'm just saying that I think that, like, I get where he's coming from, because, like, to say that wasn't a terrible headbutt, like, that was a bad one. Like, his head snapped back like that was a punch. And I think
I guess there's just like maybe there's just a better way to word it or go about it.
Than besides headbutt.
Just like
Isn't that what he said? Just headbutt?
Just like a straight, direct tweet to everyone, like, this is why that happened. So
and like to think that Volk is also like he's one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world.
I mean,
so like to take it away from the guy who's proven it.
I understand, like, you're only as good as your last fight, pretty much, but like the thing with Volkanovski is he seemingly just gets better. If he's not getting better, then he's just. Because he's already better than everybody, then he knows how to work every single one of his opponents to each degree. Like, that's it.
He finds ways to win.
He's cleared out the entire division.
Basically,
there's not there was literally just an interim champion that's put to bed, like, just like that. So I don't know what more you really want from the guy, honestly.
It's tough because at featherweight, I'm not sure who beats this guy. I mean, he overcomes adversity like nobody I've ever seen. In this fight, it was pretty minimal, just with like Yair's length. But like you think of the Ortega fight, him getting out of that, because someone was talking about it I think it was in the first round. Yair was trying to get him with like triangles, and like we were saying when I was watching it, just like until this dude actually gets submitted or finished, I will refuse to like believe that's gonna happen. Like I think that this dude is just so elite everywhere. Like if Brian Ortega couldn't finish him in those submissions that he got, I don't know who is at featherweight.
Seriously.
And you talked about clearing out the division. I think that this is like a good talking point to get into like what's next for Volk. Some people, I think it's been a poll between two things: Ilia Topuria or the Islam rematch. So I think I might be able to think of where your head is at based on what you were just saying. But what do you think should be next for Volk?
Yeah, it's got to be Topuria, I feel. I think that, honestly, I think just at this point in time right now with both these guys, I think they're honestly as good as we're going to see the both of them. Like, why not, dude? It makes, I don't think there's going to be like a better time that they're going to cross paths and eventually fight. So why not just do it now, I mean, me personally, I honestly think that they should go with the Islam one just because that's a huge fight. It's going to be a main event in Abu Dhabi, and the first one was so close. But then I also, like, my thing is... Yeah, but, like...
Well, let me say this. Like, Topuria, I agree with you 100%. Like, I should say that. Topuria is the only guy who Volk has left. So I get, like, waiting for that, like, even longer could possibly mean that there's a fight in between and then Topuria loses, which would screw everything up. But at the same time, do you think that Topuria beats Volkanovski? Because I don't.
No. But the other side of that is now you've got the lightweight champion now 2 straight title defenses against a guy not even in the division.
Yeah, but who do you even give it to at lightweight? Oliveira? I think Volk deserves a rematch more than he does.
Because here's the thing: now you got all the BS with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, right? So so I guess maybe more in Michael Chandler's case, say he wins that fight happens and he wins, like now so right there's probably, I don't know, obviously, like, how UFC views Michael Chandler and obviously how he views himself and goes about each fight, obviously, like it's his last. So maybe right there, that's the time that, just there, like, here's Michael Chandler's offer. Because how old is Michael Chandler anyways? Not to even make this like conversation about him, but just like,
he's been fighting for a minute. I'm gonna look it up now.
If his best day is indeed in Bellator, like,
he's 37. So
yeah, so
getting up there.
I'd say, yeah. So, like, yeah, that's the thing. Lightweight's just like that division that's kind of not, like, I don't want to say in flux, but it's just always, there's just so many. It's always been such a deep division with so many, personalities and stuff. So
see, with Chandler though, I don't even, and we were talking about this in that one video, but I don't think that fight is gonna happen, at least not anytime soon. Like, even Dana, now we were talking about it before the pod, he said it, because we were talking about how Dana literally said word for word that he didn't care what USADA thought, and then went back on it and acted like he never said it, and actually said fuck everybody who said that I said it, even though there's like video evidence of it. But that's neither here nor there. But like, my main point in bringing this like point up is that Dana said that he's not even really, like, there's so much business that has to happen for this fight to go down that he's not even really thinking about it yet. And he did say that USADA does matter in this instance. Okay. So I think that means that we're probably not going to see Conor in 2023. I'm still like pretty strong minded on that like prediction. I really don't believe that we see him this year. Maybe next year, but not this year. But I don't know, man. And that's when, to go back to the fights that we were talking about, where does that leave the lightweight division? You're right. Like, there's so many characters. Maybe you see, if you were to make Volk versus Islam and then the Chandler McGregor fight never happens, maybe you even do a Chandler Oliveira rematch. That could be crazy. But like, it all depends on what they end up choosing. Because I think it's one or the other with Volk. I don't know if there's really any other avenue for him besides either this Topuria fight or you bring him up versus Islam because everybody still feels the same way.
I mean, that would be pretty dope for Volk to get another shot at becoming double champ. So
I just think he deserves it because, like, he's so good, man. Like, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves as an all-time great. This man's 26-2 and has like 3 wins over Holloway, win over Jose Aldo, Chad Mendez, Ortega, Korean Zombie. Like,
even I can like think back to when obviously him and Max were, still have yet to complete their trilogy, and like Volk had already beaten Max twice by this point, and obviously the second fight with the controversy and whatnot, like, man, there was just I think that was the height of like the Volkanovski. I don't even want to call it disrespect because like I know like.
I think people just like
if it like the disrespect is easy to tell, it's like, okay, you just don't even like watch fighting enough. You don't know enough. Like, you don't know, you're not even worth the time or the attention. But the people that like kind of, I'll just even like I said before, whether Bilal Muhammad or not was trying to, whether he was trying to meaning to slay Volk or not, like how it comes off, and then you see the reaction too from fans and stuff, like, to the public eye, like, you can't really, like, sure, you can like I wouldn't say even go back, like, you can clear it up and like maybe give an explanation, but like then it's like you might as well not even either tweet it at all or just like delete what you said and just like move on or something. But
Yeah, man. I don't even know. I can't defend. I mean, like I said, I can only defend it in the sense that headbutt was actually a big thing, but like the finish was way after, and it was on the ground. And like he was getting, it wasn't like he got knocked out. He got ground and pounded until a stoppage.
yeah.
Like he got taken down. He didn't get knocked down. Like remember, Volk picked his ass up and got right inside control. Like that was insane, man. And I like I said, man, this dude is truly one of one. Like we're witnessing one of the best careers we've seen. That's my opinion.
I'll even say like I think the rematch with Makhachev, like it makes more sense at this time. But in terms of like what probably should happen, good thing that's not really for us to decide. And we just get to.
I'll say this: I know Dana, and I like that Dana said this. He said that Volk has done so much as champion at this point and has performed at such a high level that he, like when they asked him Topuria or Islam, he pretty much said, he's so good that whatever he wants to do, we'll roll with it, which is awesome. Like I think he's earned that right.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing to realize that Volk is probably going to pick his next opponent. If it's Islam, it's going to be another huge fight like it was the first time. And I just get excited every time Volkanovski's on a card. I mean, like I said, we're witnessing a guy who is one of the best fighters of this generation right now. Yeah. So whether people want to admit that or not, I get that he's still in his prime and maybe
still still in his prime, defending his title.
Just look at his resume. That's what I tell people watching. Just look at his resume, and you guys will be in awe of the people that he's beaten.
How does the Ruby thing work?
You get one every title defense. So I think he has the Holloway one, then Ortega, Korean Zombie, right? Was that after?
Yeah.
And then Yair. So it'd be 4. I could look it up though. I have Topology open, so I'll just I don't know why I'm trying to guess, but I'm pretty sure that's all there was.
Damn, dude, that's like.
Yeah, Holloway, Ortega, TKZ, Holloway again, and then Yair. So he has 5 right now. I don't know if you get one for the win, like the original title fight win.
Yeah,
I don't think you do, but they
title
might.
Defense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Damn, man, it's all-time stuff he's doing.
It really is insane, but I think we've left it to the 2 clear options, Topuria or Islam. Let us know what you guys think, but let's move on to the next fight between Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno. Pantoja defeats Moreno for a 3rd time by split decision. 2 48-47s for Pantoja, and then 49-46 for Moreno, which I feel like is where we should start, because I don't know how that. Like, I could see 48-47 Moreno, sure, but 4 rounds in that fight, I don't know, man. I don't want to shit on that judge too much because he's usually a pretty good one, but that one I just don't get, and at least it didn't matter, so I don't want to focus too much on it. But I don't see, and he gave Moreno the last 4 rounds, and be honest with you, I don't know how you give round 5 to Brandon Moreno. So, but either way, Pantoja defeats him for the 3rd time. Much deserved title fight, because I know me and you have talked about this plenty of times before this got booked, that we thought that Pantoja and Moreno needed to fight again. And now that they did, I think 2 things are clear. Pantoja is the worthy champ, and Moreno has gotten so much better since he fought him the first 2 times. So I'll let you kind of riff. Where do you want to start with this one? Because there's so many places you could start, because this was an absolute war.
Oh, I know, that's the thing. It's like I guess you really can't even go wrong. I mean, I thought at first Moreno's chin in particular was gonna carry him the entire way, which you say it did, but he didn't win the fight. I thought it was he was just gonna wear each shot. The judges were gonna notice. He was gonna continue to keep the pressure on and land and all that, and then the judges would take notice of that, and then just like that, boom, that's the difference in a split decision victory right there. But dude, Pantoja, I think, in terms of resiliency, dude, I mean, I that was one of the most gutsiest championship wins from a challenger I've literally ever seen.
especially against a guy who he's beaten twice. Like, for that to be such a tough fight, and like, hats off to both of them. Like, you're talking about Pantoja, Moreno too.
Exactly, like you literally just said. I mean, about Brandon Moreno just getting better and better.
Some of the scrambles in that fight, man, were insane. And like, the one thing I noticed on the feet in this fight was Moreno's hands were way faster, but Pantoja's grappling was just way too much. I mean, on the ground, people were saying online that he wasn't doing much from back mount. I'm like, all right, just read that again. Wasn't doing much from back mount. Like, he's on his back. Like, I get that it's hard to get a submission against one of the best fighters in the world, but he was on his back, and it's not like Moreno was able to do much from that position, you know? So, like, people saying that type of control doesn't matter is kind of mind-boggling to me. Like, I get wanting a finish and thinking that it's there and maybe he's just trying to ride it out, but Moreno's a tough dude, man. And I just think that to not give credit to the back control is kind of weird. So, I don't know. I gave this fight to Pantoja. I'm not 100% sure on the scorecards. I've watched this fight 3 times, and it's just so awesome. I can't get past the fact of how much of a war it was. Like, we had 2 fight of the year contenders on this card, and this was probably one of the best flyweight title fights of all time. I love it. Can you believe that a couple of years ago, man, that we were talking about this division might not even be a thing anymore? Like, when Figgy knocked out Benavidez and missed weight, so there was no champion for like a solid maybe 5 months, something like that. And just to see where it's gone from those days is just amazing. Like, I'll say this, I'm very happy that the flyweight division is still around. But I think the thing that everybody talks about for fights, and honestly, I don't really have a strong opinion on this. I'll tell you mine, and then like you can tell me what you think, because I don't know if we're on the same page with this one, just because it's not like a typical opinion. But when I think about what's next for Pantoja, I don't really think of anyone, and it's not because I don't think that there's like worthy contenders, but like, that was such a war that I don't really want to see either of those guys fight for the next like 6 months. Like, they deserve a break after some shit like that. Like, did you see both of their faces after that fight, dude? Swollen, bloody. Like, I think that Pantoja has earned the right to just sit back for a few months and let the flyweight division kind of reset itself, and then, because I don't want to see a Moreno fight. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think you're gonna see Moreno fight anyways. So like, I think you don't really gotta. I think it's more just, you know, the next big flyweight fight, pretty much. Like, it doesn't have, you know, it doesn't have to be for the title. I think just, I guess maybe it's better to think about who Moreno's next fight could be.
I don't even know, because Moreno's not, like, even with him, I don't want to see him fight anytime soon. Like, and Moreno's been active and has had like multiple wars, so him especially, like, even more than Pantoja, I want to see kind of take a second. Like, you've already been a 2-time champion. You know, this dude's beaten you 3 times, and your legacy is set though. Like, everybody loves Brandon Moreno. He can afford to take a little bit of time off. Like, the UFC markets him well. I'm sure he does well with like sponsorships outside of the UFC and stuff. But in terms of other contenders, Figueiredo's probably going up to 135. There's Amir Albazi. There's Brandon Royval, Cara France. But, you know, obviously Albazi just beat Cara France. But that was that was a tough decision in my opinion. But you could give him Royval. But hasn't Pantoja just beat Royval, didn't he? Not like just beat him, but relatively recent, I think. Let me just double check, so I'm not just talking out of my ass. He beat him in August of 2021, so I guess it's been 2 years. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Royval? Because Royval's coming off 3 wins, 2 first-round finishes. I don't know, man. Maybe. But it's just like, how soon is Pantoja even going to get in there? Like, both of those guys took so much damage in that fight. That's why, like, you know, usually me and you are so, like, gung-ho to pick someone, like, right off the bat. Like, oh, well, who's next? For this one, it's just like, do we really want to see Pantoja fight in, like, October after just going through a war like that, dude? Like, I don't know, man. I personally want to see the flyweight division kind of reset itself a little bit, because the only things that I've really heard people talk about are Royval, who I think you could argue for, and then Moreno.
There's not much to really talk about, honestly.
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess we'll just let it reset, like we're saying. So we'll get into the next fight. I mean, this fight card, man, was filled with just constant action, big fights. This one, big middleweight title eliminator. Robert Whittaker versus Dricus du Plessis. I mean, me and you have been talking about this after all these middleweight fights that have happened, saying that this is the last domino to fall, and it has fell. I think that DDP, man, he rose to the occasion. That's the best way to put it. He fought one of the best all-around fighters in this sport, and he took him out. And what more can you say besides, like, wow? When's the last time that we've had a true title eliminator like that, and the guy who the promotion probably wants to see win actually gets the job done, and in spectacular fashion? I was really impressed by du Plessis in this fight. What did you think, man?
Yeah, dude. So more so on like, all right, like I think with like it was so I think now that the fights happened already, like I guess fine, I'll be bit more open about this, but man, I wasn't crazy about Robert Whittaker coming in like anyways. It's more like a fight week thing, I guess, just like, just more, not even about like all the outside things going on between obviously the current champion Izzy Adesanya and then Dricus du Plessis, but to me this like felt like just kind of like I think it would have been better for Rob Whittaker to not even like take this fight, and then Dricus du Plessis is now still scrambling and trying to waiting to find his fight. Like I feel like kind of in a way like maybe UFC just like saw like didn't really even try to seek out like what else there was for Dricus du Plessis, and like Robert Whittaker is available. Robert Whittaker right now is like he's obviously like it's obvious now his best days are behind him. Like
really, you think that? I don't think that at all.
So I think this was not to say it's. No, man.
Well, I'm not just gonna interrupt you. Like, what do you? Like, why do you think?
Well, so here's the thing now. Like, so if Adesanya beats Dricus du Plessis, sure, then are we saying a rematch between du Plessis and Rob Whittaker?
Okay, wait. So when you say like his best days are behind him, like, are you talking just strictly like about championship days? Yeah. Okay, I thought you meant like skill, because I think like he could still. Beat, like, a lot
but like
people.
So like that's what I'm saying. Like
okay, yeah, no, so I could agree.
Now I gotta break out the like
the matchmaking.
Yeah,
just thinking about
and then now we're talking about Robert Whittaker as a gatekeeper, and like I never thought that would be a thing I'd ever be saying.
It's crazy because I think if Izzy wasn't around, Whittaker probably would have been really dominant as champion, because I think for a while it was really like 1 and 1A, and Whittaker
it just sucks. Like, man, and like it's good that you kind of like caught me there, because like I was it did sound like I was going more in like Robert Whittaker, he's washed, he doesn't have it at all anymore. But
yeah, I was like I get that he got knocked out, but I was like damn.
No.
But I get what you're saying. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so like. Yeah, man, it's just...
It's tough. You never like to see Whittaker lose, man. He's one of the best, like, people in the sport.
And I guess now with, like, all right, now that we've got the domino to fall, like you said, it's...
Now we know. Like, this is the fight. Adesanya
I feel like,
DDP
let's talk, in terms of, like, who UFC wants to win, I feel like they'd probably want du Plessis to win. Honestly,
versus Adesanya?
Yeah.
Really? What is your theory on that? I don't know if I really think that they favor either way, but I think
they'd want a rivalry between these guys, and so multiple fights and like a potential trilogy maybe, but a lot of that just crazy. Shoulders on du Plessis himself, like.
I mean, talk about
first, like. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because I definitely don't want to like just go right over the win over Whittaker, because I think beating a guy like Whittaker just deserves the hype in itself. I mean, he came in there and he actually delivered on what they needed him to deliver on, because that was all on him. If he lost that fight, that title fight's gone. So that the UFC wanted a fresh contender, and he really rose to the occasion. And one of the things that I noticed, and kind of why I was like hesitant to like say that Whittaker is like washed in any way, it was more because One of the things I thought was a factor in this fight that I didn't really think of before is the fact that DDP was like a lot bigger than Whittaker. And you can kind of see that just in the terms of how they were landing. Like when Whittaker was landing on Du Plessis, it wasn't having that same effect. Like it would throw him off a little bit, but he wasn't getting hurt. But every time that Du Plessis hit Whittaker clean, Whittaker was clearly like affected by it. And then in that second round, man, just that finish was crazy. Like I don't know if I thought that Dricus Du Plessis could beat Whittaker, but I definitely didn't think he could finish him. And I will say that, like, I was definitely wrong about that. I thought Whittaker was, if he was going to get it done, it was going to be a tougher fight than his usual ones, because I do think Dricus is really good. And on the ground, man, he's elite. I mean, doing what he was doing to Whittaker at the end of the first and then to finish the fight is insane. Like, he made him look mortal, and I don't think anyone's really made Whittaker look like that since Adesanya, if I'm being honest. So just to see him finish him and like cut him up with the elbows too, just a great win. But then, you know, we go on to the fight with Adesanya now. Afterwards, he gets into the cage. So let me ask your opinion on this first. Do you think he was drunk? I think he might have been a little buzzed.
Man,
I don't know if that was a sober moment. I don't.
Yeah, either way, it was not. It was not,
not ideal.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna repeat what Israel Adesanya called Dricus Du Plessis probably like 4 or 5 times in the broadcast. ESPN was probably like blowing up Dana's phone like, stop him now. But, you know, this fight, and you were talking about a rivalry, I think that this rivalry goes way past the octagon. I mean, I don't really want to get too far into it, but it has to do with like Africa a lot. And, you know, we saw that Du Plessis said that he wants to technically be the first African UFC champion, and then obviously that got some pushback from Adesanya, and since then it's just been a really like personal beef in a weird place. Now I'll say this, I don't love it, but at the same time I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, this is too far, because they're fighting, you know what I mean? This is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. These guys are going to sling mud at each other, but they're going to get in the cage and fight at the end. So this isn't basketball, this isn't baseball, they're not just playing a game. This is going to get settled in the cage. So I think that you can kind of like take that real world aspect out of it, because I think it's gonna get a little ugly, like in the like fight week maybe during the press conferences, especially if the whole thing with Africa starts coming up, because that has to do with like apartheid and a bunch of stuff that I don't even want to remotely get into in this podcast. But I don't know. I definitely don't think it was ideal. But you can kind of continue.
Let's kind of think of like the tale of the tape between the two, Adesanya and Du Plessis. So I think honestly the first thing I think about would probably be reach, and I would think that's, you know, probably in favor of Izzy.
Yeah, I think on the feet in general.
On the feet, exactly, and
because even in this fight, Du Plessis' striking was more like power oriented, not exactly like the greatest technique.
The thing is too, I don't really think Du Plessis is, you know, getting him with takedowns either. And so like you're kind of talking like, I think like in order to get Izzy down, like he's gonna have to knock him down, like actually. And so, man, I think yeah, like you said, I think that stand up between the two is like, it's gonna be, man, it's I don't know if it's gonna last long on there, but for every second that it is on the feet, like it's gonna be huge.
It's gonna be danger at all times for Du Plessis, because he keeps his head in the pocket, and against a guy like Adesanya, he's gonna find I think his only hope. I shouldn't say his only hope, because anybody can, and he's got power, so anybody can land a big shot. But
the head kicks too, like
I just think that the way to go would be to kind of shoot in the middle of the octagon and not on the cage, because I think Izzy's cage wrestling is incredible. But then, if you can kind of like push the pace and actually get him in the center, then he's gonna have to scooch back to the cage. You might be able to get some good ground and pound, and maybe even a submission. Because I think on the ground, like if it actually comes down to like DDP being on top of Adesanya for an extended period of time, then I think Adesanya is in real danger, because I think that he hasn't fought a grappler that's this good in a while. So
I think it's, you know, obviously you don't love like the story and whatnot behind it,
Yeah, I mean, you wish they were beefing over like some dumb shit rather than
Yeah.
like actually something serious.
But you know,
yeah, I don't think
if it adds to a great title fight that we're gonna see between them, then you know.
Well, that's kind of where
I'm
my
all-
point was
I'm
going to
all
go with
for
it.
it,
I think
yeah.
it'll only add to the hype of it. I know that fight week is going to be crazy.
It's a new challenger for Adesanya. I think that's exciting. So.
Exactly. That's why I'm not happy to see Whittaker lose, but I'm happy that we got a new contender out of this because Izzy is in need of fresh
Very
blood.
capable contender too. So.
Yeah, and especially a hype one because we've had a bunch of Izzy fights in recent years that like they're not really talking much in the pre-fight. Like it's more respect, and not that that's a bad thing, but to build a big fight card, it's nice to have a little bit of shit talk and. You know that these guys are gonna be going at it. I mean, if Izzy in the cage wasn't any indication, but yeah, man, I was really impressed by Du Plessis. Honestly, like if I had to pick somebody who impressed me the most last night, would probably be him, just because of who he beat and how he was able to do it in such a brutal fashion. Because I did not see that coming at all. But I will say this: something that I did see coming was Hooker versus Turner being an absolute fucking war. I think that
was a fight of the night.
I think that was fight of the year, even over the
fight
title
of the year.
fight.
Yeah,
for me. For me personally, I would not argue with anybody who thinks that the flyweight. Oh god, just knocking over the secret juice, getting too amped. But I wouldn't hate on anybody who picks the co-main event as fight of the year, but you got to consider this one.
I think it's this one.
Where do you even start with this one? I mean, because Dan Hooker is tough as nails. We all know that. He's had multiple crazy fights like this at this point, like versus Poirier, Felder. Oh god, there's like one more that I'm thinking of. I think I wrote it down too. I don't want to forget these because he deserves all the credit. Oh, and I just wrote this one, duh. But in the early part of this fight, Turner was doing pretty good, but I think that they both hurt each other so many times in the first like 5 to 7 minutes of this fight. I think Turner was getting the better of it, but you could tell that Hooker wasn't out of it by any stretch. But then in round 3, I think Turner was probably exhausted. Probably because that weight cut, if I had to guess. Just missing weight by 2 pounds, 158. So you can't really imagine that the weight cut was that good. And, I mean, that's the only reason I could think of, really, for why he was that tired. Because he hasn't really looked like that in the past. So, but props to Hooker, man. Because just to last through all those big shots that he ate to get in like a dominant position in that third round and just really beat the shit out of Jalen Turner. And I don't know, man, that fight was just chaos. Like I'm literally jumping from point to point because I don't even know where to start with it. But just what were your thoughts on this just amazing instant classic of a fight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bro. I think it was a fight that both guys I thought it made sense coming in, and I thought there was a lot at stake for both guys, and even like win or lose, like I thought like it was like coming in regardless. Like I think we were in for a great fight one way or another, and then we did get a great fight, and just like I think on either way, like both those guys needed like that that kind of fight, just like. First, like, in terms of, like, I would think that, freaking the bonuses and stuff, and just, like, in terms of, obviously being on a pay-per-view and getting all this attention and stuff, like, to, obviously to the casual crowd and whatnot, like, these are two guys that deserve that kind of shine and attention and praise, because, I mean, like, Dan Hooker, definitely for one, and then obviously up-and-coming Jalen Turner still, so...
And his stock did not fall. I mean, you could say what you want about the weight miss, but in terms of the fight itself, his stock didn't go down, in my opinion. And Dan Hooker's just goes up. Like I think you got to give him a top 10 guy next, just because he's hovering right on the outside of it, and he just beat a surging contender. But
yeah, man,
it's insane to think about Dan Hooker's career and how many just crazy fights he's had, even in losses. His wins are insane. I mean, I was thinking about some of the fights where because in this one, he was so tough, right? And then I thought about some of his losses, like the one versus Edson Barboza, where he's just got beat up to the body, or even the Islam Makhachev. We were talking about that one last night when he got caught in that Kimura, and he didn't even tap. He just screamed, and the ref stopped the fight because he was mad. Like, can you believe that? He's getting his arm just ripped apart, and he was mad that the ref stopped the fight because his body forced him to scream. Like, that's insane. So Dan Hooker is as tough as they come. Truly, he's an absolute warrior in there. And you were talking about guys getting their respect. I'm glad that a mass audience just got to see Dan Hooker put on a show against Jalen Turner. And Jalen Turner too.
Exactly. Fight of the year, man.
Hey, man. Well, I mean, I'm hoping that we get some better fights because that'll only mean more fun podcasts and more fun
It's like
fights.
crazy to think that, like you were literally just saying about getting his arm freaking mangled by Islam Makhachev. Like, it's crazy to even think that Dan Hooker is still, like, able to deliver these kinds of fights and win them.
Yeah. Like the guys I was with last night, like they were like, yeah, I'd say that was technically a verbal tap. He might not have intended to be a verbal tap, but I think when the opponent is in a deep Kimura and they start screaming, that's probably when the ref should step in. But like the fact that Dan Hooker would tap to that is just insane. I mean, that deserves credit in itself. But top 10 opponent, that's how I feel. Would you agree?
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I only had one name that I kind of picked out, and I don't know if it really be too insane stylistically, but it's a good step up. What about Hooker versus Gamrot? Not too bad. I think the grappling might be a little bit of an issue, but Hooker's definitely not like bad on the ground. He also has like good front choke. So
I'm here for it. I love a Dan Hooker scrap. The dude just, he fights every lightweight there is to fight. And so, yeah, it's awesome. And, yeah, I hope he keeps it going.
Dude's a savage. But let's get into the last fight we got to talk about on the main card. Speaking of savages, Bo Nickal, man, knockout, 38 seconds. I mean, what else can you say besides the fact that he was the biggest UFC favorite in history. And I think that was warranted, judging by how this fight went. I mean, he didn't even have to use his grappling. Just the fact that he hit him with the hooks that he got him with and just starched him right off the bat. And that dude was undefeated, too. So he wasn't just like some random bum. I get that he took the fight on short notice, but man, what a performance. And I don't know where to begin with him because his wrestling, we don't even need to talk much about that. 3-time national champ at Penn State. We know his wrestling is insane. I think he's still a bit green in the stand-up. Even in this fight, you could kind of see it. Like, he's a bit, like, herky-jerky with his technique, and he might get caught versus, like, a faster striker. But I don't know. Where do you want to begin with this one? Because we can kind of go talk about the quick fight that happened, or we can kind of talk about where maybe they should go with Bo Nickal next. Because I think either is a worthy conversation, I guess.
I mean, we can definitely talk about the fight itself, getting it done on the feet, TKO finish. Like, that shouldn't go. I don't think that should go, like, unnoted and whatnot. So, like, it is pretty encouraging to see how a guy like Bo Nickal, and obviously a guy that, that we've obviously talked highly about and want to see at the top, and then obviously the company themselves. And so, like, yeah, I mean, it's once again to get that done in that way on a pay-per-view card. Like, I think it's a big deal, and I think it goes a long way. So
what a way to start it too, with like such an exciting first round finish. And then one of the other things I noticed too, more in the interview, honestly, because the fight was so short. But you ever notice like how much of a pro Bo Nickal is? He's 5-0 in MMA, and he has like the poise of a 30-fight veteran. Like, he's putting his arm around Joe Rogan, like he's been there a million times. Like, and I get that he's an accomplished athlete outside of the UFC, but just the pure maturity that this guy has and his fight IQ is amazing to me. Like, I don't worry about him going out there and doing something stupid and getting knocked out because he listens to his coaches. His wrestling is so elite that it probably, even now, can match up with those top guys. Maybe not his striking, but his wrestling for sure. I just think that this dude's going to keep going further. Do you think that they should build him slower or faster? Because I think keeping a slower pace is the best move for a guy that's still green. But what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously he's mauling people.
Yeah, I think he's on the slower track, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, I guess he just keep looking in for pay-per-view cards, and maybe he gets like a fight night main event. So.
Not at the Apex. Don't put him at the Apex.
In the Apex.
We don't need to see that. Keep putting this dude in front of crowds.
Well, just for like, so like, just out of like curiosity, and so like, would the smaller cage, if a smaller cage would it favor a grappler?
Oh yeah, that would definitely help him. Yeah. Less room for someone to run, pretty much. But I mean, he doesn't even need it. Clearly, I think all of his fights have been in the big cage, right?
Yeah.
So, do we even need to see him in the smaller cage at this point? I think this dude's a fan favorite already, and he's not even fighting ranked people. I think the hype on him is real, and I mean that not in the way that like all the people are watching, because we know that, but just with this dude's wrestling credentials alone, I think it's safe to say that we're gonna see him at the top of 185 at some point. Maybe not as champion, we don't know. I mean, who knows how the landscape is going to be over the next year or two. Yeah. But I think that this dude's going to be a mainstay at the top of this division for sure, just from sheer wrestling alone. And at ATT, he's going to be able to round it out with all the good training partners there. So just outstanding performance once again for Bo Nickal. And the last fight that I really wanted to talk about was Robbie Lawler's retirement fight. As a fight fan, and as any fight fan should think, this was such an amazing way for him to go out. I mean, we don't see many guys get to go out like this with a first-round knockout win. So to see him knock out Nico Price like that, and to see that highlight reel that they showed during his interview, get him choked up like that, someone who you never really would think of as a crier. I mean, dude, I thought someone was cutting onions during that, man. That was classy. We could start in a lot of places. I mean, the fight itself, much like the fight that we just talked about, was very quick. So I don't really know if there's much to go on there. I mean, this was a typical Robbie Lawler knockout. I don't really think there's much to break down. It's not like we're going to be talking about who's next. So I just think that this is a good point to give Lawler's flowers.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, dude. What did you think about that highlight reel that they showed after? Because they don't usually do that. I thought that was amazing.
I thought that, that's what made everything so perfect.
That was really well done by them. I wasn't expecting them to do that because they don't really do that for anybody, not like during their career. So I thought that was classy by them, especially, a promotion that sometimes you don't see people go out on the best of terms. And he got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame earlier this week too, so it's just been a memorable week all around for Robbie. And, I mean, this dude's been fighting since 2002.
Well,
21 years in the game.
So I know he's not, technically he's not a Pride fighter, but he has fought in Pride, right?
That's a good question. You might be right about that,
because, like, if he has, then there is literally no more Pride.
Let's find out. It would be way down there, that's for sure. I don't think he has, though.
Any shred of pride left.
Oh, no, he has. He fought one time, I think. Pride 32. Won by first round knockout, 22 seconds. Much like this one. So, I think that's actually his fastest finish over this one. So
coincidence?
That's incredible. Not. He was good in Strikeforce, too, man. I wrote this down on the outline. But, like, one of my favorite fights of his of all time, and we'll get into a bunch of his fights in a few, but he had a fight in Strikeforce versus Melvin Manhoef, who, for anybody who doesn't know, because it's a bit of an old school name, great kickboxer, just outstanding on the feet, and he was just tearing Robbie's legs up in the first round, and then eventually it just got to a crazy scramble, and Robbie did what Robbie does, and just landed a huge shot and knocked Manhoef out cold. One of the better comebacks I've seen. That's a Strikeforce fight, so you guys are going to have to go on UFC Fight Pass if you want to see that one, or you could find it on YouTube. But one of the things that I've written down here that I definitely want to talk about is just, I think me and you will agree on this, so let's just get this out of the way. I think we both agree that UFC 189 versus Rory is probably our favorite Robbie moment. And, we can get into it. The fight itself is crazy. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even have to be just Robbie. I mean, that's probably my favorite fight of all time. I agree with you on that one. But then you pick...
so isn't this fight in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that fight just got inducted into it.
So nice. Now Robbie Lawler himself is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, he deserves it.
Same with Rory, too.
Rory wasn't at the event, but he was
defended
inducted.
his title and like wow, what a legend.
He really is. I mean, I look at his
Truly
whole title
incredible.
reign. It's
Truly
nuts.
incredible. I'm glad I'm here to cover his retirement in real time.
Well, I'll say this. I'm glad we get to cover such a great ending because we've talked to so many fighters who didn't get that luxury. I mean, we saw Joanna get finished in her final fight. I remember when Nick Diaz got beat by Robbie Lawler. That was a bit sad to see. I mean, it just sucks seeing those old OGs of the sport just get beat like that. But this one was perfect. I thought it was a good matchup, too, versus Nico Price. But then, I mean, this dude's been through so many wars, had so many knockouts. I mean, he's knocked out Josh Koscheck, Jake Ellenberger. I remember he fought Cowboy. That was a good fight. His fight versus Askren was really good. I mentioned the Manhoof one. But then you go in his title reign, he beats Johnny Hendricks at UFC 181, 5-round war. Beats Rory McDonald at 189, another war. And then 195 versus Carlos Condit. That's another fight you could argue is one of the best ever.
Yeah.
It's nuts, dude. Like, this guy is truly one of one. People have called him the Mike Tyson of MMA. I would kind of agree with that almost. I mean, you might be able to say Francis Ngannou too, but Robbie Lawler was doing it for everybody.
Did Robbie ever end up winning a welterweight title?
Yeah, dude, what are you talking about? In the UFC, yeah. That fight with Rory was a title fight. That was a title defense, I should say.
Okay, all right, yeah. No, because I'm thinking about the lightweight, his lightweight run.
Robbie?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the same dude? He never fought a lightweight, dude.
There's no... Wait, hold on.
No, bro.
Robbie Lawler's been a welterweight his entire career.
Fought at middleweight in Strikeforce, I think.
Oh,
but that might be what you're thinking of.
No, not even, man. It's like, wow, I didn't even, like, his whole entire career.
That dude would have to cut his leg off to get to 155, I think. He's
wow.
a big dude. But, his title reign...
Sheesh.
I know that... I should say this for the viewers who are, like, might shit on you in the comments. You have only been watching the UFC since, like, 2019, 2020, right?
Yeah, like,
so,
yeah. Like,
don't give him that much shit, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. I mean, I haven't, like, he's pretty much the majority of his career is, like, has fought before, like, you know.
Oh, even for me.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I've been watching the UFC, I guess if you want to really start it, since, like, 2015, 2017, and then I got it, like, into it hardcore in, like, 2018. But when I was getting into it was when, like, Robbie was in the middle of his title reign. I don't think I was, like, fully invested yet when he beat Hendricks, but I've seen that fight now. I mean, he fought Hendricks, so I'll give you, like, the little blueprint, and this will maybe educate some of the more newer fans of MMA. But, like, Robbie Lawler, he came back to the UFC, because he fought in the UFC in the early days, like, before UFC 100, and then he fought in Pride, Strikeforce. And then when Strikeforce got acquired by the UFC, he came back. And then I think his first fight might have been against Rory in, like, the first time he fought Rory. And he beat him in another underrated... Because I think because of the second fight, people don't talk about how great the first fight with Rory was, too. But eventually he gets to a title fight after GSP retires after beating Hendricks. So it was him versus Hendricks. I think it was UFC 171. And he lost that fight, but it was a war. And then eventually they fought again at 181 because... Robbie, let's see, because I don't want to get this wrong, because his career deserves to be told in the right way. But after he lost to Hendricks the first time, that's right, he knocked out Ellenberger, and then he had an insane war versus Matt Brown. And then he came back and fought Johnny Hendricks again, beat him in a war, and I just went through his title reign before. I mean, this dude, I don't think you could really say he's one of, like, the greatest welterweights or middleweights of all time, but... This dude has left his mark on the sport, that's for sure. I mean, people will be talking about Robbie Lawler's fights, I think, until the end of time or the end of the UFC, whatever comes first.
Yeah, screw a weight class anyways. I just know Robbie Lawler as a freaking fighter.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just busting your balls a little bit when I'm, like, messing with you about that. I just don't want people to give you a hard time in the comments. Dude, people,
it's just when
the MMA community gets mad,
man. Tell me about it, man. I mean... Dude, when you fucking fought, you have the fucking track record that Robbie Lawler has. Like, jeez, like, I would think you tend to, like, move around in weight classes a little bit, but for all that to be done in one division, I think is pretty impressive. So
yeah, man. I mean, he's a welterweight champion, no matter how you slice it. I mean, guys like Usman, Woodley had like, I guess, more dominant reigns, but Robbie Lawler's whole title reign at welterweight was just pure action. So because of that, salute to him, man. That was what an ending. That's really all I could say about it. So the last thing I really want to talk about is just the card in general. I mean, there were so many finishes even on the prelims before the Lawler fight, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I think the one question that I keep seeing around just social media and stuff is this the best UFC pay-per-view ever?
I mean, I don't feel like I'm in a position to be saying that, but I mean, it's
Well, for you, where does it rank like in ones that you've seen live? I guess I'll put it like that, or have seen like the whole thing, because
it's one of it's top 3 easily, top 3,
Yeah.
top 5, whatever.
I agree,
It's-
man. I see. We were just talking about
I
UFC
thought-
189
yeah.
before. I think that's number 1 for me because Robbie, Rory, and the co-main was nuts, and then
I mean,
McGregor
I
Mendez
thought
was crazy
just
too.
all the fights just made sense, and they all delivered in their own unique way, and
From start
Yeah.
to finish too. Like we didn't talk about every single fight on this card because we're already almost at an hour. So if we did that, we'd be here probably for another hour. But there were a lot of impressive finishes and stuff from top to bottom. This was definitely one of the best that I've seen. I personally, 189 is my favorite. I have a soft spot for that Robbie Rory fight, and then McGregor Mendez was awesome. And then another one that I liked a lot was 217, which is GSP versus Bisping. And that had like 3 title fights on it. It was stacked from top to bottom. Plus, it was on my birthday, so it has a special spot for me. But I think it beats like ones like UFC 100 or 205, like just iconic cards. This one was pretty insane, man. Like, I know it didn't have some of the star power that people were hoping, but in terms of the fights themselves, this lived up to the hype and then some. I mean, like I said, we had 2 fight of the year contenders in 3 fights. That's incredible.
I feel like in a way it did have the star power. It's just
Not to the casual audience,
Yeah.
I should say, because I think people who are in
which
them may
is
love Volk.
exactly. So I mean, I guess like however you want to interpret that, in case of like hopefully the casual fans got a better understanding about these guys, or
Man, I hope so. I mean, Volk more than anybody, I hope, gets the credit.
or
that he
like
deserves.
or the other way, like you were saying, they're not entirely sold because there's not enough star power and all that. So
I will say I've heard a lot of good things about this card from people who aren't sure, aren't sure. They're not like big UFC fans. Like they watch sometimes, but definitely aren't as locked in as like me and you. I think that well, I say locked in as me and you. You thought Robbie Lawler was a fucking lightweight, but no, I'm fucking with you. But I think that this card will last through the test of time. I think that we'll look back on this as one of the best cards that we've seen. I put it at number 3. I'd be curious to see what you guys think. You guys should put it in the comments what your thoughts are on that one. But I don't really have much more to say on this card. We have a fight night next week with Holly Holm and Maria Bueno Silva back at the Apex. Gotta love it. But that's really all I got. So let us know what you guys thought of this card. Like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe. We'll see y'all.